Welcome, it's Captain Matt with Boater's Secret Weapon, and we're talking about Haulover Inlet and why is it so challenging and what should you do about it. So you've likely seen this video from the Haulover channel. It is one of the scariest things I've seen, and yet it is something that is not uncommon if you watch Wavy Boats and Boats versus Haulover and all of those different channels. But why is it so difficult and what should you do about it? So let's take a look at the inlet itself. So this is the inlet down in Miami. And what's interesting about the inlet is a couple of things. Number one is you've got wide open ocean out here to your right, okay? And then you've got this little tiny cut through, and back here are thousands and thousands and thousands of boaters. So a couple of things you'll notice as you look at this inlet to the open ocean. One, if you see this area right here, that tells you that it's starting to get shallow. And as you get, if I could have got that Ritz out of there, you could have seen it even better. Let's zoom in and you can actually see how shallow it is right here. Well, what does that mean? It means as waves are coming in, as it hits the shallow water, it gets to a point where the shallower it is, the bottom of the wave starts slowing down, and now the top of the wave start curling over and start breaking, okay? So that's the basics of how waves work. And so we've got wide open wind coming in. We've got a very narrow area. We've got a whole bunch of boaters, and it's a recipe for some entertaining and some scary YouTube channels. So if we look, and everybody's got to come through this little bridge and haul you right through. You'll also notice that the jetties, it's really not protected at all. The jetties end right at the beach, which means the wind can come from here, the wind can come from there. You got a little bit of a curl there, but very narrow, all right? So we've got a couple of things going on, and if we look at a wave, you've got, we'll say, no interaction from any elements, okay? No tide, no wind, no breaking. This is what a wave's gonna look like. Now what happens is we put that break in there, which was about right here, and we add some wind coming from the ocean, and we add some tide going out. So now what we've got is we have two forces coming together. The wind's pushing the water this way, the tide is pushing the water this way, and we've got a shallow area that's going to make it break. But not only is it going to break, it's going to break and everything's funneling through this narrow area, okay? What does that do to the waves? Well, what it does is the wind and the current just stack the waves up. So instead of having a nice slow, easy roller like is what's happening out here, you've got some nice, easy rollers. Instead, you're stacking it together. And now you add the shallow, and now you've got those waves breaking, which is down here at the bottom, okay? So that's why you'll notice at times, Haulover is easy to get through, relatively speaking. At other times, it's a little more challenging. And at some times, it is like you should not go through that inlet at certain times of the day, because if the tide's going out, well, all that's getting condensed in. But if the tide's coming in, well, now we don't have as much water being condensed. And look what happens when you put a boat on this, okay? So let's just say you can see that as we're traversing the wave, this one, as we move further on, hey, we can nice and easily roll over that. This one's got a little bit more of a challenge. And then as you hit that third point at the peak, this one, hey, even if you don't do it exactly right, it's rough, but it's not crazy. As we get at that yellow zone, hey, if you're on the throttle too much or not on it enough, you can either Thelma and Louise it off the top and jump off the top, which you see, or you can see them starting to go down, and this is where they start stuffing the bow into the wave. Now they get through that part, and now they hit the part of the inlet where the waves are actually breaking. And instead of Thelma and Louising off a roller, now you're Thelma and Louising off a big cliff, and you get a lot of air. Or you don't put enough throttle in it, and you stuff your bow, and you stuff your bow right into a steep wave. Not a roller anymore, but a steep wave, and now you've got a bad situation. So what do? All right, the first thing is you should have some trim in your engine, whether it's an outboard or a stern drive. You want to get that bow up. That's going to help you soften everything and roll into that next roller. So another thing which is critical is to maneuver your throttle according to where you are in the wave. Now remember, when they get really stacked up, they're really close together, and you've got to be almost perfect if you're going to try to go through it in those rough conditions. And again, sometimes I say, just don't try. Find another inlet, even if you've got to go 30, 40 minutes out of the way, or don't go out that day. Wait for the tide to turn and then go out. So as you're coming up the face of the wave, you're on the throttle. Now, I'm not saying wide open throttle. I'm just saying a little bit more throttle because you're going up a hill, just like you would in a car. As you hit not the peak, but just before the peak, you're going to come off that throttle a little bit. What that's going to do is that's going to drop your nose down. If you stay on that throttle, now we're going to jump the ramp like Dukes of Hazzard style. But if we come off that throttle, we're going to lay that bow down, and it's going to slowly roll over the crest of the wake. Now as we start coming down the wake, now we've got that dangerous part. We're not going to Thelma and Louise or Dukes of Hazzard. We're going to get back on the throttle a little bit because now we don't want to stuff the bow. We want to bring that bow up. Okay? And so you're going to stay on the throttle and you're going to ride the face of that wave. And then as you hit that almost the peak of the wave, now you're going to come off. You're going to let that bow settle down. You're going to bleed some speed off so that you don't go jumping off the wave. Now that's going out of the inlet, okay? That's what we're talking about, going out of the inlet as the waves are coming into you. All right, and then you're going to trim up. Now, another thing that you want to consider is the type of boat that you're running through that inlet and the conditions. If it's perfect conditions, okay, we can be a little bit more flexible. If you're highly skilled, okay. But if you're a new boater and you don't understand how to handle your boat well, and you're not a highly, highly competent person, going through in these style of boats is excessively dangerous because one is you're more likely to take a wave over the bow because of the design of the boat. So on a deck boat, you're almost asking to just scoop that water up. And once you get that water scooped up, now you've got an extra 1,000, 2,000 pounds of water in your boat, which sinks you even lower. It also makes you more unstable, and it's even more dangerous. And now you've got to get yourself sideways to those wakes and potential capsize, but you put yourself in a very difficult situation. Same thing with the pontoon, same thing with the bow rider, is it's really easy to stuff those into the waves. And when you do, all of that water's in your boat. And most boats of this style don't have an easy drainage system. It's not going to flow out of the water real fast like it would on a center console, a dual console, a walk around or a cruiser or a cuddy cabin, where that water's just going to kind of flow off or flow out the scuppers real fast because it's sort of designed for those types of environments. Another couple styles of boats that you need to be very cautious in are jet boats. Again, they're bow riders, wake boats, bow riders, but they don't even have the ability to trim your engine. So you can't get yourself bow high with anything but the throttle. And now you're in a very difficult situation. Another thing you can do if you're going through an inlet, not just Haulover, it's one of the more famous ones, but there are a lot of difficult inlets where it has that same characteristics of wind coming in from the open ocean, tide going out through a narrow channel. If you don't have a lot of jetty, that's going to be blocking the wind and the waves from other directions. That's another added level of difficulty. Well, you can use the same tips, and that is move your weight from the bow and put it in the back of the boat. Let your ballast of your people and your gear get that boat up. And also, it keeps those people from getting thrown out of the bow, because think about it. That's the part of the boat that's gonna go up and down more quickly and more dangerous. And also, if you're going through an inlet and it's rough, kids should be in their life jackets no matter what. But maybe for that inlet, everybody should have their life jackets on, because it is probably the most dangerous 5 minutes of your boating time is getting through that inlet, okay? So we didn't talk about coming back into the inlet. We'll do that in another video. I would love, if you're very experienced, add your comments, things that I should have added that I didn't, tips you have, inlets that you've gone through that are challenging, and what you've done, or mistakes that people make that I didn't cover. I would love to hear that in the comments. If you're new to boating and you found this helpful, you definitely need to get our Best Boat Captain on the Water, as well as our Confident Coastal Boater programs. You can get these at bestboatcaptain.com. They're incredibly valuable. It will give you the knowledge, it'll give you the skills that you need to go out of the water, reduce that stress, really eliminate the stress in a lot of areas, understand how to operate at the coast with the Confident Coastal Boater, and it is one of the best investments you can make in your boating fund for you and your family. And remember, life truly is better on a boat.